Darkly Dreaming Dexter, Chapter 4. I took my boat out that night after work to get away from Deb's questions and to sort through what I was feeling. Feeling? Me feeling. What a concept. I nosed my whaler slowly out the canal, thinking nothing. A perfect zen state, moving at idle speed past the large houses, all separated from each other by high hedges and chain-link fences. I threw an automatic big wave and a bright smile to all the neighbors out in their yards that grew neatly up to the canal seawall. Kids playing on the manicured grass, mom and dad barbecuing or lounging or polishing the barbed wire, hawk eyes on the kids. I waved to everybody. Some of them even waved back. They knew me, had seen me go by before, always cheerful, a big hello for everybody. He was such a nice man, very friendly. I can't believe he did those horrible things. I opened up the throttle when I cleared the canal, heading out into the channel and then southeast towards Cape Florida. The wind in my face and the taste of the salt spray helped clear my head, made me feel clean and a little bit fresher. I found it a great deal easier to think. Part of it was the calm peace of the water, and another part was that, in the best tradition of Miami watercraft, most of the other boaters seemed to be trying to kill me. I found that very relaxing. I was right at home. This is my country. These are my people. All day at work, I'd forgotten little forensic updates. Around lunchtime, the story broke national. The lid was coming off the hooker murders after the grisly discovery at the Cacique Motel. Channel 7 had done a masterful job of presenting all the hysterical horror of the body parts in a dumpster without actually saying anything about them. As Detective LaGuardia had shrewdly observed, these were only hookers, but once pressure started to rise from the media, they might as well be senators' daughters. And so the department began to gear up for a long spell of defensive maneuvering, knowing exactly what kind of heart-rending twaddle would be coming from the brave and fearless foot soldiers of the Fifth Estate. Deb had stayed at the scene until the captain began to worry about authorizing too much overtime, and then she'd been sent home. She started calling me at 2 in the afternoon to hear what I discovered, which was very little. They'd found no traces of anything in the motel. There were so many tire tracks in the parking lot that none were distinct. No prints or traces in the dumpster, on the bags, or on the body parts. Everything USDA inspection clean. The one big clue of the day was the left leg. As Angel had noticed, the right leg had been sectioned into several neat pieces cut at the hip, knee, and ankle, but the left leg was not. It was a mere 2 sections neatly wrapped. Aha, said Detective LaGuardia. Lady genius. Somebody had interrupted the killer, surprised him, startled him, so he did not finish the cut. He panicked when he was seen, and she directed all her effort in finding that witness. There was one small problem with LaGuardia's theory of interruption. A tiny little thing, perhaps, splitting hairs, but the entire body had still been meticulously cleaned and wrapped, presumably after it had been cut up, and then had been transported carefully to the dumpster, apparently, where enough time and focus for the killer to make no mistakes and leave no traces. Either nobody pointed this out to LaGuardia, or, wonder of wonders, could it be that nobody else had noticed? Possible. So much of police work is routine, fitting details into patterns, and if the pattern was brand new, the investigation could seem like 3 blind men examining an elephant with a microscope. But since I was neither blind nor hampered by routine, it had seemed far more likely to me that the killer was simply unsatisfied. Plenty of time to work, but this was the 5th murder in the same pattern. Was it getting boring, simply chopping up the body? Was our boy searching for something else, something different, some new direction and untried twist? I could almost feel his frustration to have come so far, all the way to the end, sectioning the leftovers of gift wrapping, and then the sudden realization, this isn't something. This isn't it. It's not right. Coitus interruptus. It wasn't fulfilling him the way anymore. He needed to be exposed with a different approach. He was trying to express something and hadn't found his vocabulary yet. And in my personal opinion, if it was me, this would make him very frustrated and very likely to look further for the answer. Soon. But let Lagorta look for a witness. There would be none. This was a cold, careful monster and absolutely fascinating to me. And what should I do about that fascination? I was not so sure, so I had retreated to my boat to think. A Donzi cut across my bow at 70 miles per hour, only inches away. I waved happily and returned to the present. I was approaching Stiltsville, the most abandoned collection of old stilt homes in the water cape of Canaveral. I nosed into a big circle going nowhere. I let my thoughts move back into the same slow arc. What would I do? I needed to decide now, before. I got too helpful for Deborah. I could help her solve this, absolutely. No one better. No one else was even moving in the right direction. But did I want to help? Did I want this killer arrested? Or did I want to find him and stop him myself? Beyond this, nagging little thought. Did I even want him to stop? What would I do? To my right, I could see my Elliott Key in the last light of day, and as always, I remembered my camping trip there with Harry Morgan, my foster father, the good cop. You're different, Dexter. Yes, Harry, I certainly am. But you can learn to control that difference and use it constructively. All right, Harry. If you think I should, how? And he told me. There is no starry sky anywhere like the starry sky in the South Florida when you are 14 and camping out with Dad. Even if he's only your foster dad. And even if it's only out of the sight of the stars that merely fill you with a kind of satisfaction, an emotion of being out of the question. You don't feel it. That's part of the reason that you're here. The fire has died down and the stars are exceedingly bright, and foster dear old Dad has been quiet for some time, taking small sips on the old-fashioned hip flask he had pulled from the outside flap of his pack. And he's not very good at this. Not like so many other cops. Not really a drinker. But it's empty now. And it's time for him to say his piece if he's ever going to say it. You're different, Dexter, he says. I look away from the brightness of the stars. Around the small and sandy clearing, the last glow of the fire is making shadows. Some of them trickle across Harry's face. He looks strange to me, like I've never seen him before. Determined. Unhappy, a little dazed. What do you mean, Dad? He won't look at me. The Billups say Buddy has disappeared, he says. Noisy little creep. He was barking at me all night, and Mom couldn't sleep. Mom needed her sleep, of course. Dying of cancer requires plenty of rest, and she wasn't getting any of it with that awful little dog across the street yapping at every little leaf that blew down the sidewalk. I found the grave, Harry says. There were a lot of bones there, Dexter. Not just Buddy's. There's very little to say here. I carefully pull a handful of pine needles and wait for Harry. How long have you been doing this, Dexter? I search Harry's face, then look out across the clearing to the beach. Our boat is there, moving gently with the surge of water. The lights of Miami are off to the right, a soft white glow. I can't figure out where Harry's going, what he wants me to hear, what he wants me to say. But he is my straight arrow foster dad. The truth is usually a good idea with Harry. He always knows, or else he finds out. 1.5 years, I say. Harry nods. Why did you start, Dex? A very good question, and certainly beyond me at 14. I kind of had to, I tell him. Even though so young, but so smooth. Do you hear a voice? He wants to know. Something or somebody telling you what to do and how to do it? I say with a 14-year-old eloquence. Not exactly. Tell me, Harry says. Oh, for a moon. A good fat moon, something bigger to look at. I clutch another fistful of pine needles. My face is hot, as if Dad asked me to ask about sex or my sex dreams. Which, in a way, I kind of, feel something, I say, inside, watching me, maybe, laughing. But not really a voice, just an eloquent teenaged shrug. But it seems to make sense to Harry. And this something, it makes you kill things? High overheard, a slow, fat jet crawls by. Not, doesn't make me, I say. Just makes it seem like a good idea. Have you ever wanted to kill something else? Something bigger than a dog? I try to answer, but there's something in my throat. I clear it. Yes, I say. A person? Nobody in particular, Dad. Just, I shrug again. Why didn't you? It's... I thought you wouldn't like it. You and Mom. That's all that stopped you? I didn't want you, mad at me. Um, you know, disappointed. I steal a glance at Harry. He's looking at me, not blinking. Is this why we took this trip, Dad? To talk about this? Yes, Harry says. We need to get you squared away. Squared away. Oh, yes. A completely hairy idea of how life is lived with hospital corners and polished shoes. And even then I knew needing to kill something every now and then would be pretty much sooner or later would be getting in the way of being squared away. How? I say. And he looks at me long and hard. And then he nods when he sees that I am with him step for step. Good boy, he says. Now. And in spite of saying now, it is a very long time before he speaks again. I watch the lights on the boat as it goes past, maybe 200 yards out from our little beach. Over the sound of their motor, a radio is blasting Cuban music. Now, Harry says again. And I look at him, but he's looking across, away at the dying fire, off into the future, over there somewhere. It's like this, he says. I listen carefully. This is what Harry says when he's giving you a higher order truth. When he showed me how to throw the first curveball and how to throw a left hook, it's like this, he would say. And it was always that. Just like that. I'm getting older, Dexter. He waited for me to object, but I didn't. And he nodded. I think people understand things different when they get older, he says. And it's a question of getting soft. It's not a question of getting soft or seeing things in the gray areas instead of seeing black and white. I really believe I'm just understanding things different, better. He looks at me, Harry's look, tough love with blue eyes. Okay, I say. 10 years ago, I would have wanted you in an institution somewhere, he says, and I blink. That almost hurts, except I've thought of it myself. Now, he says. I think better now. I know that you are, and I know you're a good kid. No, I say, and it comes out very soft and weak, but Harry hears. Yes, he says very firmly. You're a good kid, Dex, and I know that. I know it. Almost to himself now, for effect maybe, but then his eyes lock onto mine. Otherwise you wouldn't care what I thought, or what Mom thought. You just do it. You can't help it, I know that, because he stops and just looks at me for a moment. It's very uncomfortable for me. What do you remember from before, he asked. You know, before we took you in. That still hurts, but I really don't know why. I was only 3. Nothing. Good, he says. Nobody should remember that. And as long as he lives, that will be the most he'll ever say about it. But even though you don't remember, Dex, it did things to you. Those things make you what you are. I've talked to people about this, Dex. And strangest of strange, he gives me a very small, almost shy, Harry smile. I've been experiencing this. What happened to you when you were a little kid has shaped you. I've tried to straighten you out, but he shrugs. It was too strong, too much. It got into you too early and it was going to stay there. It's going to. It's going to make you want to kill, and you can't help that. You can't change that, Dex, but, he says, and he looks away again to see what I can't tell. But you can channel it, control it, choose. His words came so carefully now, more careful than I had ever heard him talk. Choose what, or who, you kill. And he gave me a smile unlike any I had seen before, a smile as bleak and dry as the ashes of our dying fire. There are plenty of people out there who deserve it, Dex. And with those few little words, he gave a shape to my whole life, my everything, and my who and what I am. The wonderful, all-seeing, all-knowing man, Harry, my dad. If I was only capable of love, how I would have loved Harry. So long ago now, Harry is long dead, but his lessons have lived on. Not because of any warm or gooey emotional feelings I had, but because Harry was right. I proved that over and over. Harry knew, and Harry taught me well. Be careful, Harry said. And he taught me to be as careful as only a cop could teach me to be a killer. To choose carefully among those who deserved it. To make absolutely sure, then tidy up. Leave no traces. And always avoid emotional involvement. It can only lead to mistakes. Being careful went beyond the actual killing, of course. Being careful meant building a careful life too. Compartmentalized, socialize, imitate life. All of which I had done so very carefully. I was a near perfect hologram. Above suspicion, beyond reproach, and beneath contempt. A neat, polite monster, the boy next door. Even Deborah was at least half fooled half of the time. Of course, she believed what she wanted to believe, too. Right now, she believed I could help her solve these murders, jumpstart her career, and catapult her out of Hollywood sex suits and into a tailored business suit. And she was right, of course. I could help her, but I didn't really want to because I enjoyed watching this other killer work and felt some kind of aesthetic connection or emotional involvement. Well, there it was. I was clear in violation of the code of Harry. I nosed the boat back towards my canal. It was fully dark now, but I steered a radio tower a few degrees to the left of my home water. So be it. Harry had always been right. He was right now. Don't get emotionally involved, Harry said. So I wouldn't. I would help Deb.